In 2007, Nokia sold more than 400 million phones. That's one phone for every person in the United States, Canada, and Mexico combined. They were not just winning, they were the industry. They were the gold standard. And in just 5 years, everything was gone. This is the story of how the most dominant technology company in the world lost everything. Nokia was born in Finland in 1865, not as a phone company, as a paper mill. For a century, they made rubber boots, cables, and televisions. They survived two world wars and a near bankruptcy in the 1990s that almost finished them completely. But that near death experience forced a choice: cut everything that wasn't working, bet everything on mobile phones. That bet was extraordinary. Nokia understood something almost no one else did: that the mobile phone wasn't just a communication tool. It was going to become a personal object, something people would carry everywhere, for everything. They designed for that. The world rewarded them. By 1998, Nokia was the largest mobile phone manufacturer on Earth. By 2000, their market value had reached 200 billion euros, the most valuable company in all of Europe. Not the most valuable technology company, the most valuable company, period. At their peak, one in every three mobile phones sold on Earth had a Nokia logo on it. In Finland, Nokia didn't just represent a company, they represented national identity. Nearly 4% of Finland's entire GDP came from Nokia alone. This wasn't luck. This was earned through obsession, through engineering, through a relentless focus on phones that worked. But here's the thing about dominance: it does something to you. When you're winning by this much, for this long, it becomes almost impossible to believe that anything could stop you. That belief is the beginning of the end. On January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco and said, "Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything." Nokia's executives watched it happen, and their response was dismissal. Too expensive, no physical keyboard, weak battery life. From a pure engineering perspective, they weren't entirely wrong, but they were asking completely the wrong question. The iPhone wasn't just a better phone, it was a different idea of what a phone could be: a computer in your pocket, a platform, an ecosystem, a place where software could do what hardware alone never could. Nokia built extraordinary hardware. Software was a different world. And this is where the story gets psychologically fascinating. Because Nokia saw it coming, internal documents later revealed that Nokia engineers had been developing touchscreen technology for years. They had prototypes, they had concepts, they had people inside the company who understood exactly what was happening and were screaming about it. But those voices never reached the top. Nokia's leadership had calcified. In a company that large, that successful, ideas had to survive enormous layers of management before becoming decisions. When the people at the bottom know the truth, but fear prevents it from reaching the people who need to hear it. Nokia didn't fail because they were ignorant. They failed because they were afraid. And that fear was invisible, wrapped in confidence. And so they froze, not in panic, in comfort. They kept building phones. They kept running meetings. They kept making decisions. But every choice was designed to protect the past, not build the future. That's not a technology failure, that's a human one. And the world didn't wait. While Nokia was busy defending what they had, everyone else was building what came next. The gap grew, then it became a cliff, and Nokia walked straight off it, slowly, professionally, with a full boardroom present. By 2012, their smartphone market share had collapsed from over 50% to under 5%. In 2013, Microsoft bought what was left for $7.2 billion. A company worth 200 billion euros at its peak sold for 7 billion in less than a decade. The collapse felt unreal even while it was happening. But the silence inside those walls, that had been building for years. Nokia's last truly iconic phone, the 3310, is still remembered today, not for its specs, not for what it could do, but for what it felt like to hold one. The world doesn't owe you relevance. It doesn't care how dominant you were. It moves, with or without you. Nokia's real tragedy wasn't the fall. It was the moment, somewhere at the peak, somewhere in the silence of a boardroom, when they stopped being curious about what came next. That's the question every company, every leader, every person eventually faces. Not, are we winning right now, but, are we still asking the right questions? Nokia stopped asking the right ones. Have you?